might as well start talking a little bit about cars, supply and demand, and some of the things that I have done in my past that have made me very successful with cars. We have a system, for those of you that do not know, at Secret Entourage called How to Drive a Luxury Car for free. We also have a system called How to Drive an Exotic Car and get paid. So a lot of people always ask me, they're like, well, is that a scam, or what do you guys do, and this and that? And I tell them something really simple. So I spend the majority of my younger years, the majority of them, talking always and understanding everything there was to know about banking and finance. So everything I approach in my life, regardless that it's cars, jewelry, any type of luxury goods, real estate, is always looked at from the lens of supply and demand. It's never looked at from the lens of, never ever looked at from the lens of just the item itself. So I never buy a car because I love it. I buy the car that I'm going to be able to buy, drive, and sell without losing money on it. I never buy a house because it's the house that I want to live in. I buy a house because it's the right investment that's going to give me the right amount of money and eventually pay me back a dividend when I sell it, but yet gives me the opportunity to live in it. The same can be said for watches or just for about anything else that has to do with luxury lifestyle or just living. So since I spend the majority of my time analyzing data, because I was a banker for the longest time, and analyzing numbers, there's one key element that's played a great role in my life, and the one that I share with you today is what I call supply and demand. So there is a lot of value in understanding supply and demand. There's a lot of value in understanding it because, one, it helps you understand the economics behind the innovation of a lot of businesses, and two, because it helps you understand how to actually participate, live, and enjoy luxury lifestyle without actually paying for it. A good example of that. So what if you bought a car today for $60,000, right? What if you could drive that car for 10,000 miles above what you bought it for and sell it for $65,000? And what if all of that time you could write it off under your business? You would say that that's a pretty good deal. Now, here's the key part. It has to be a really nice car, and it has to be timed properly with the market. So for example, when Bentleys are hot on the market, right, and supply is low, demand is high, right, the price for them is going to be higher. So what you want to do at that point is, obviously, if you have a Bentley, you want to be in the selling market, not in the buying market. Versus if you have an Aston Martin, and at the time you are trying to buy it, supply is high, demand is low, prices are going to be down. Here's the beauty of exotic parts, or exotic cars, I should say. They change constantly. The demand and the supply for them is constantly changing, and at different times there's different supplies in the market, and at different times there's different demands on the market for the exact same car. What I try to teach people through these two books is not that there's a magical answer for when you buy or sell a car, but rather to understand the dynamics of what makes that market work and function, and then ultimately be able to duplicate the exact same thing. So what you're going to be doing is buying a car superbly low at the lower end of the spectrum at the right time, and sell it at the higher end of the spectrum later with more mileage, so you almost break even or profit. The real profit comes though from your tax write-off, because of the financial loopholes out there that allow you to write things off, especially when you own a business. Which is why I've geared this system towards entrepreneurs and business owners rather than just anyone working a 9 to 5. There's a lot of value in understanding banking and finance when it comes to business. Like, for example, if you don't understand how to secure a loan for your business, if you don't understand what a business or what a bank looks at in order to give you a business credit card, or how their checking accounts work, or how you can manage your finances better, well, finance is an important, critical role of any business, right? Every one of us needs to know how to manage our personal finances and our business finances, and has to come up with creative ways to not only write things off, but creative ways to actually continuously make money and make sure we decrease the gross to net margins. One of the biggest advantages I've always had when I was very young was, instead of always looking to make more money, I always looked at making the most net money, not the most gross money. So I would always look, instead of looking at, I make 50,000 a year, how can I, make, let's say 80, 100, etc. I looked at that too, but primarily I looked at, I make 50,000 a year, I pay 10,000 in taxes, so I'm taking home 40,000. How can I make sure I pay less taxes so I take home 47,000? Because ultimately that gap that I was, kind of trying to avoid, that gap is ultimately where a lot of money was. And a lot of people, overlook that gap. They forget the fact that there's a huge gap of taxes that if you actually get back, it's no different than if you were making 70, 80,000 a year, because you're now paying less taxes. You're actually keeping more money in your pocket. It's no different than making more money and paying more. So the end result is the same, which is why I always thought there was a lot of value in understanding, nets and gross revenues, and understanding where you can make the biggest impact on your bottom line rather than just on your gross revenue sales or your gross revenue income. It's very important to note that supply and demand plays a great role, especially understanding the supply and demand world, plays a great role in identifying how Main Street and Wall Street act. From a very, very young age, especially when I started kind of thinking about real estate, people said, well, how did you know when you weren't in the real estate business? How did you know when you weren't a real estate guy? Like, well, how did you start becoming very successful in real estate? I said, it's really simple. If you want to know what Wall Street is, what's happening on Wall Street, look at Main Street. When you see supply and demand on Main Street shifting, then you know Wall Street is about to shift theirs as well. And same vice versa. So a good example is during the housing market, we knew that supply was low, demand was high. So we knew prices would go up, then we knew banks would follow with giving bigger loans, doing home equity loans, things like that. So we can predict that. The same can be said vice versa. When we see random people who are not investors, who are nobodies, come and tell you that they're buying their third house on a 40K a year salary, and that the bank approved them for no reason with no docs, knowingly that they forged their documents, then that tells you that Wall Street is losing control over its regulation and also losing control over its lending. What does that mean? That means that Wall Street is getting greedy. So what can we foresee? Well, if we are smart, what we usually see there is that there's going to be a crash somewhere in the system to realign, because everything adjusts itself. There's checks and balances in place for itself. So like recessions happen only to, re-level the playing field. That happens, whatever. What we also identify though is the next big bubble. If we knew that real estate was the first bubble, and we identified that this event is going to occur ahead of time, where we know banks are going to incur a serious crash, we prepare ourselves to buy supplies of their stocks at low demands, because we know that they're about to encounter a major crash as a result of that. So when we look at Main Street and understand supply and demand, we can truly get into Wall Street and buy certain stocks or trade certain stocks and do certain things. So that event occurs when we understand why certain things are going to take place by connecting the dots between Main Street and Wall Street, and by also connecting the dots between the selling market, the marketing behind the selling market. When I say the selling market, I mean luxury goods or anything else we buy or sell. And then ultimately we have a mixture of, that market, Wall Street, and the investment market, which is your stocks, real estate, and everything else coming together. We have all these things, and ultimately that leads us to understanding the patterns and the connection these three things have together, which enables you to become a smarter investor, a better buyer, and ultimately someone who has leverage over the industries rather than someone who is a byproduct of them. You no longer buy like a consumer. You buy everything like a wholesaler, because every buying decision becomes an investment decision, and every selling decision becomes a profit decision. None of these decisions remain emotional nature, like I want that blue car, I want that big yellow house, I want this and that. Instead, it's more like what makes sense, what can I enter, exit at the appropriate time, and what can I leverage, more important than what can I buy. When you shift your mindset to leveraging instead of buying, you start winning. And you start winning more and more and more, and can continue to play the game without losing a dime every single day, week, month, or anytime else you switch cars or watches. This has enabled me since I was, I think it was like 19 years old when I kind of started using, 19 or 20 when I started using the system. And since then, every 6 months, I've been buying new cars, trading 7, 8 watches, wearing them, enjoying them, and leveraging them and profiting out of them. So everything that I touch, this luxury lifestyle, is not because I'm a show-off or anything. It's because to me it's a business. To you guys it's an expenditure, it's a show-off. To me it's a business that I use to continue to be able to fund other things that are not luxury lifestyle related. And so everything you do has to be looked at from that leverage position, which is key to succeeding in the long term, so that you don't actually waste money on things that have no value and depreciate anyways. So you turn liabilities into assets, you create long-term assets, short-term assets, and then you liquidate for cash flow as you need.